Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 443. I am your host, Michael. Joining me, per usual, Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from 4Boxing News, and the Inscriber. And I can understand if Daniel is somewhat distracted, as is Miami Heat playing the Boston Celtics right now, game two of the first round. Heat up 10 as we are recording this episode, 80 to 70. So understand if you got your attention somewhere else. Daniel, for those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site, etc. Talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. If you want to find out more information, please go to the site p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with any questions or thoughts, you can do so p4pboxingreport, p4pboxing, excuse me, at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll find links to where to catch us all over social media, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Twitter, uh, Facebook, IG page. Also links to where you can donate. If you wish, let donation be the best nation. Um, wouldn't matter to us if it's $1, $2, $5, whatever you wish to contribute. Cash me, PayPal donation links. Um, on the site, also links to where to catch the Pound for Pound Box Report all over the podcast realm, whether it's Anchor, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Box Report. Last but certainly not least, for my fellow fitness enthusiasts, please check out the link to BODI formerly known as Beach Body on Demand. If you're looking to get your body right, if you're looking for a really good program, um, for those who are looking to get their weightlifting on, um, please check out Body and programs like Body Beast, Live For, Live More. The sample program of Dig Deeper is a new program that's coming later on this year. If you're looking for CrossFit, hardcore functioning type of workouts, please check out programs like 645, 6 weeks of the work, morning meltdown, bar blend, etc. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, please check out 10 rounds, and that is a 6 week program, 3 days of boxing based cardio, 2 days of weightlifting. At the very least, take advantage of the 14-day trial, and that runs throughout the year, and that is for 14 days. You can get, free access to any and all programs on on Body, BODI. Let's get things going. And look, the fight that folks are still talking about, right, took place at Barclays. Uh, we previewed it in great detail last week, Gail, and my analysis was on balance, Devin Haney was the better boxer than Ryan Garcia. He's done more, he's proven more. Garcia's only shot was power, particularly when it came to the left hook. And to the surprise of many, darn near all, that's what Ryan did. He went YOLO, as far as I'm concerned, in that fight. Landed the left hook early, stunned Haney, right? And Haney gathered himself, I say rounds 2 through 5, but in rounds 7, he got hurt again. And from that point on, he was not the same. Haney went down 3 times, and I don't want to be critical. No, I am going to be critical here. Garcia got the win by majority decision, but for me, I don't understand. I did not understand Haney's game plan. We all knew beforehand that Ryan Garcia's biggest punch, his best punch, was the left hook, right? His most dangerous weapon. Haney let himself get hit with that punch often all night long. He kept getting hurt with power shots. Now there are questions about Haney, about his chin. Um, Ryan Garcia, the biggest win of his career, Gail.
No question. Compliance Restoration and Roofing out there in the chat said he felt like a fool on Monday after predicting Haney would win that fight with ease. Sir, You got a hell of a lot of company. I think including everybody here, every single person at New York Fights, we had our prediction panel. 11 people out of 11 picked Haney. And here we are with all our expectations just blown up. It is really rare I make a prediction where I feel that sure. and likewise, I hope rare that I get it that wrong. But hey, what we did get was an incredibly competitive, very exciting, dramatic boxing event. Assuming y'all didn't fall asleep on the undercard, that's another story. You would think that Devin Haney and his father, Bill, who is his trainer, who've done a brilliant job so far putting game plans together and executing them, would have known that the one punch they needed to watch out from Ryan Garcia was the left hook. And not only that, that he would come roaring out at the opening bell, unload. His stamina was questionable. That he would try to get to Haney, unload, burn every bit of fuel in his gas tank, take his best shot, and call it a night as things settled down and Haney got to business and took care of things. Well, it looked like that might be what happened. Right out of the gate, they did in fact meet in the center of the ring. Ryan did go right after him, and to everyone's shock, Ryan popped him pretty hard a minute into the fight. Pushed him backwards. In fact, I was so shocked at first, I thought Haney had in fact gone down. I had to readjust myself and realize what had happened. After that initial first round shocker, and the second round, Haney settled down, got down to business, and it looked at that point like, oh, okay, now the fight's going to get around to being what we all thought it would be. Until Garcia, who was remaining competitive but losing rounds, no question. I had Haney ahead as we went into the seventh round of the fight, just barely. Suddenly, Ryan erupted, knocked Haney down, knocked him down again in the 10th, knocked him down again in the 11th round. Now, mind you, those were the first 3 knockdowns in Devin Haney's entire professional career and his first loss in his entire professional career. That's saying something. The fight was close despite the knockdowns because Devin did win those middle rounds. But the rounds he won were not overwhelming. They were close. I don't think that there was any question about scoring them for Haney, but he didn't win with a lot of drama and he didn't win them in an overpowering way. But every round that Ryan Garcia won, he won. And 3 of them included knockdowns. 1 of them included, beating the crap out of Haney out of the opening bell, and the left hook. What happened? Haney owned the result after the fight. I applaud him. He made no excuses. His only explanation was he caught me. I was sleeping on it. He was just not right. He was just not right in that fight. Do we blame weight issues? Ryan coming in as heavy as he did? Haney struggling. We know he had struggled forever getting down to 135. He still looked pretty drained getting down to 140. He
stripped down to get that to make 140 during the morning weigh-in.
You know what? As long as somebody's within a pound or two, I don't get too excited about it. I mean, a pound is a trip to the bathroom in your clothes. It's a big deal. And when you're 3.2 over, with word coming, from various unnamed sources out of the camp that Ryan had to drop quite a bit of weight earlier in the week. Yeah, that means somebody didn't even try. I mean, didn't even work at it. And Ryan didn't even try to hide the fact. He talked about he went out drinking Monday the week of the fight. He went out Tuesday. He went out again. I mean, he owned that too. But it was a stunning result. There's still a lot of us trying to wrap our heads around what happened because we really did get something so different than what we expected, especially given Ryan's awful performance against Tank Davis when it was a fight that really mattered. A guy that quits, you could argue whether you think Ryan quit against Tank or whether he just decided, discretion is the better part of valor, as the saying goes, and he decided, I'm losing this fight. I got nothing. There's no reason for me to take any more of a beating that I already have. Let me live to fight another day. In retrospect, preserving himself that way could have been the first step towards what we saw on Saturday. In any event, expectations changed. Tons of drama involved. Everyone's still trying to read the tea leaves. Ryan has been on his victory lap and then some. He's doing as many interviews after the fight as he did before the fight. He did a ton of those. And it's given us all a lot to talk about and a lot to speculate about as to what's next for both these guys, which I'm sure will be chapter 2 of this podcast coming up shortly.
Indeed, that will be discussed. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your thoughts? Was this good Haney? Was this bad Haney? Good Garcia? A bit of both.
It was a night of chaos. Chaos reigning supreme. And we have to admit it. It started the weigh-in. Once we found out that Ryan was about 3 pounds over, it kind of looked like maybe that was his way. That was his out of the fight because there was really doubt that he would even make it that far. But they worked out a deal. They signed up for it. And I mentioned it when we did the prediction that the only punch that I saw that Ryan needed to land in order to have a chance the fight with Haney was the left hook. And lo and behold, that's what he lands within the first, 90 seconds of the first round. And that punch changed the trajectory now of probably the mentality of the fight. Because at that point, once you saw Haney being rocked like that, it did give Ryan the confidence saying, okay, I can rock him. I just had to make sure to land this again or to get enough shots in where they have to call this by TKO. He didn't get that far, but we also have to keep in mind the hooks have been a weakness for Haney for a good while. Let's not forget, folks, that 11th round against Jorge Linares, where Haney was pretty much running away with the fight. And then Linares lands. Beautiful hook in the 11th round. Rocks Haney. Almost wins the fight on that point. But Haney got through it. They relaxed. And he was able to finish the fight and win. That shot has been his kryptonite for a good while. And it showed. Now, rounds 2 to 6. The expected jab fest. That's what I expected for Haney. Keep the jab away. Have Ryan do lunges. And it didn't help that Ryan was doing weird things like sticking his palm out Klitschko style to gauge the jab and doing probably the weirdest version of the Philly shell that you'll see in a good while, where it led Haney to land shots that were almost kidney shots. They were borderline kidney shots at a certain point, but that was mainly because of how Ryan was positioning. And we all figured by the end of the 6th round, okay, this is going to be a slow burn for Haney. He'll push it out. Then the 7th round came and all chaos reigned. Now, this is the part where I know people really, really want to harp on Harvey Dock. Because, yeah, we can admit this was not the best night for Harvey Dock. He's usually a straight shooter, but first, Ryan did himself any favors because I think the seventh was the round where he got a knockdown, and then he gave the point immediately back by landing a pity pass shot during the break as Harvey Dock was trying to break them in front of Harvey Dock, mind you. But that entire seventh round, Haney, I was surprised he was standing, but he was holding on for dear life with Ryan. He was holding on for dear life. And you can debate in the seventh round whether or not a lot of the two, maybe two or three instances that Harvey Dock called slip on Haney, whether they were actually should have been counted as knockdowns, because he was pretty rocked. And at that point, it was just that all the confidence Ryan needed. Like, he knew he could hurt him, and he just kept going at it and landing shots throughout. Got two more knockdowns during the fight, and it was a chaotic night. Now, I am not going to give him full credit for saying that, oh, this was a master plan all along, because in history, victors write the narrative. Ryan didn't. I don't think he really planned out everything like for months, like he's trying to say. He won, so he can say that, and people would give him the benefit of the doubt to believe in him. I don't. But it was pretty much a victory that puts Ryan on the map in a good way. He did the exact opposite of what we thought he was going to do. And ultimately, this to me doesn't really hurt Haney. But what it does tell me, he cannot go to 147. He cannot do welterweight. Because, and this is what Ryan does. Granted, he said that he ballooned up to middleweight for the fight for the hydration. Even though it was at that point, I don't think Haney can survive shots like from that, like from boots, from staniosis. Hell, even if it comes out to it from Bud, he has to probably stay at 140, but he has to rebuild himself. The good saving grace for him is he's still technically right now the champion in the 140 pounds for WBC, but it was a very interesting night.
There's a lot to unpack here in the aftermath. We'll read a couple of comments from Compliance and Roofing. Compliance Restoration and Roofing, my apologies. He says Derek James had a great plan, in my opinion, by having Ryan circle the ring and cause Devin to step to him. He also says that wasn't the Philly shell, that was the Ryan shell. I agree.
Oh, it's the Victorville shell.
Yeah. I would push back against that game plan, quote unquote, from Derek James. As I said, YOLO mission from Garcia. Daniel's absolutely right. Well, I'm gonna say he's right. I agree with him. Pushing back against this narrative from Garcia aftermath that he had this all set in place. No, he didn't. Only thing that he had set in place was he was going to go in this on his own. Damn what anybody else thinking. His strategy was to do whatever he wanted. He did things literally on the fly, and fortunately for him, it worked. There was no great strategy. There was no great technique, as far as I'm concerned. That circling, or that's the quote unquote plan to have Haney come forward. That was after he hurt him, and Haney tried to get his pound of flesh, right? Tim Bradley, who's been getting all kinds of criticism, particularly from Ryan Garcia, stands and fanboys for his commentary during and after the fight, right? He essentially is arguing that he didn't agree with Garcia's behavior before the fight. Garcia said he was trolling. I don't think so. Doesn't agree. And afterwards, he's saying people who are heaping his praise and acting like Garcia is a great fighter. In the aftermath, he's not. And I agree with Bradley on that. Let's talk about the future here. Well, first of all, what we saw from Garcia, I go to you, Gail. We talked about it last week. His actions before, even his actions afterwards. Um, there was some concern from all of us last week previewing this fight. I think that still is a concern. There still should be some concern, even though he got the win.
You know, Ryan is far from the first boxer who has accomplished things in the ring that were impressive or unexpected, who appeared a little bit unhinged. Mike Tyson, anybody? Think about some of the shit Mike Tyson used to say before fights. You know, it didn't get amplified by social media. It didn't get blasted on multiple YouTube podcast interviews, IG live, post after post after post, because those channels just didn't exist. Would he have done that at that time? Yeah, I think he would have. I think so. And these two aren't the only examples. I mean, I think everybody could probably cherry pick one here and there. You know, these guys are under a spotlight. They're in a difficult sport. It's dangerous. They're under enormous pressure. Layer on top of all of that, the social media age we live in, and it would get to anybody. But Ryan Garcia has grown up in this environment. He is used to it. I think that some of the behavior is questionable. At times, though, he seems perfectly fine. You know, is Ryan Garcia good for boxing? Right now, he is. Is boxing good for Ryan Garcia?
Yeah.
That's a decision he's going to have to make right now. Full steam ahead. Nobody's happier about it than Oscar De La Hoya because he and Golden Boy have struggled a bit without the big, enormous income and celebrity that came from Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo had never really been fully replaced. But Ryan just stepped forward with an enormous infusion of income to Golden Boy. You know, nobody has been bouncing around with a bigger smile on his face this week than Oscar. Maybe Bernard Hopkins right behind him. And if they get a good performance out of Jaime Munguia, it is really going to turn around that organization's fortunes. So we'll see. And Munguia is looking very good. He had his media workout meeting with the press yesterday, wild card in Los Angeles. I want to back up and say one thing. People talking about the lack of a chin with Devin Haney, I say the exact opposite. Haney finally, he proved he does have a chin. Most other opponents would never have made it to the final bell in that fight. A lot of people were surprised that Haney made it out of the first round. He got clocked. He didn't go down, but he took a hard shot that he didn't see coming, which always makes it more dangerous. He got up after multiple very hard knockdowns. That's a guy who shows incredible grit and determination. There were very few other fighters who could have withstood that punishment, got up and carried on the way he did. It did look like he had a broken jaw by the end of the fight. He says no, but you could not only see the damage in the swelling around his face, you could hear it. He was mumbling as if he had a mouthful of marbles during the post-fight interview. So he's going to need some time to recuperate, some time to adjust his plan. But he's still completely viable. And yeah, as long as he can make 140, he can stay there. Ryan Garcia made it very clear he is not staying at 140. So that will, in large part, direct where he goes next. But he's lit up boxing. He's been the talk of the boxing world. It's Wednesday. Everybody is still very lit up about it. If it hadn't been for the other big announcement this morning that we're also going to talk about, he'd still be the top headline of the week. And everyone's going to be very curious to see where he goes next and what he does. The interesting thing about Ryan, though, I will add at the end, and he's made this clear on several interviews this week, he doesn't need the money. He does not need the income from boxing. He is set. He's got a ton of other business ventures. Say what you will, he is a marketing savant. It's astonishing.
He's still living off of that 20-30 million he earned for that loss to Tank.
Well, it's not that. He has so many influencer and marketing sponsorships and agreements. He's just, he's making nothing but cash because of the way he knows how to generate buzz and visibility. And he had so much practice at it. He turned it on himself, and here we are.
Yeah, but the problem is, in terms of his boxing future, what he's doing right now is not sustainable. It's not sustainable that he basically didn't train for this fight. That style that we saw is not sustainable. Let's talk future here. If he has to tighten things up. Daniel Gale, he's talking about moving up to 147, calling out this fighter and that fighter, whether it's Conor Ben, whether it's Boots Ennis. And I'm like, okay, bet. You go in there and see what you go in there and try to go for a fight against Boots. It ain't what we saw against Haney. That's not going to work against Jerron Ennis. No way.
No, but the move to 147 to me is more of a move by default, because if you think about it, if he didn't, unless he really, really tries to make 140 and actually makes it semi-comfortably, it may be a point where, yeah, his body may not be good enough to do 140 anymore. So 147 may be by default. But the main thing about it is, unfortunately, like I mentioned, like this kid knows how to market himself. He knows how to get people to click, whether you like it or not. And that speaks volumes, for example, for a fighter like Boots, who, as skilled as he is, he may sometimes be seen as too risky for some marquee fighters. If Ryan's able to do that, hey, that works. He won't win, but then again, we all thought he wouldn't win against Haney, so we'll have to be quiet on that front. But there's certainly openings there at 147, and not to mention, if we're gonna go crazy for crazy, there's always the prospect of a Teofimo fight. And that's a fight between two people that have really essentially have grown up in the social media age.
Oh gosh, imagine the pre-fight trash talk. Imagine the one-on-one interview with both of them. Oh boy.
Yeah,
I say that for good.
Bob and Oscar would probably drink themselves under the table trying to control them. But
listen, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Not at all. Mark my words. It's going to be Ryan Garcia and Conor Ben. End of discussion.
And that one makes sense because Ben kind of can't fight in the UK, so you're not going to have a home field disadvantage. And two, Ryan could probably out crazy Conor Ben, because we don't know what his four-ranger product is. He's kind of an unknown commodity, Conor Ben, in some ways, because of the trajectory his career has taken. So that would be an interesting fight, and it would make decent money.
Let's move on to touch a bit on the main undercard fight. Arnold Barboza, the junior, highly ranked junior welterweight, right? Fighting unknown Sean McComb, Daniel. Barboza was the favorite, but in watching this fight, he did not win. I felt that McComb outworked him for jump. There's so much discussion about Garcia's win over Haney. I think there's not enough attention being devoted to McComb getting hosed here when it comes to the decision. McComb should have had his hand raised in victory.
Yeah, that this fight was pretty much the antithesis of the main event. Barboza really, really didn't look good, and this was pretty much, had Haney won, would have been a dress rehearsal to get a fight with Haney. He didn't look good at all, and unfortunately, this is a situation of the hometown guy or the home promotion guy usually gets the win. I don't know if any. I don't know also if one of the things that was on McComb's trunks may have played a factor, considering the tragic state of world events at the moment, particularly in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because in case folks like you don't realize that McComb, he's Irish, and Ireland has actually made a very, very public campaign and public knowledge that they side with Palestine in the conflict with them in Israel, at least in the recognition of Palestine. And that's what he had. McComb had, I think, a free Palestine and a Palestinian flag in his trunks. I don't think that played a factor, but sometimes at this day and age, you never know what the optics may be. But he should have won that fight. That kid deserved to have his hand raised. But luckily for Barboza, many lucky ways for Golden Boy, Ryan winning upsets the apple cart in a lot of ways. Yeah, you can still technically try to make a fight with Haney, but people are going to want to see that rematch with Ryan if they're Haney. They're going to want that rematch. Because from 2 to 6, he was breezing to victory. And then from 7 on, chaos reigned. So it wasn't a good outing for Barboza, but he may not actually get hurt for it. But I do really feel bad for McComb. He deserved that win.
Indeed. Let's move on to some news here. A lot of speculation about what's upcoming for Terence Crawford, right? There's been rumors in these boxing streets that we've known that he was going to move up to 154, but been rumors about who was he going to fight. It was officially announced today that he's going to fight Israil Madrimov, WBA 154-pound champion. Fight is going to happen August 3rd in LA. The news conference was announced today. There was a news conference today, and I go to you, Gail. This is going to be the main event is what's going to be a stacked card. A lot of excellent fights on this card, a lot of big names. I'm happy ultimately that we're going to get this kind of card in the United States. A breakdown of this monster card is going to happen in August.
So the announcement came this morning in Los Angeles that Riyadh season would be coming to the Americas at what is now called BMO Stadium. It used to be called Bank of California Stadium. It's where the LAFC Major League Soccer franchise plays. Beautiful little stadium. And it is not entirely new to boxing. There have been 2 cards there, plus a large media event, a big media workout for the Canelo Golovkin 2 fight, a top-ranked card and a Golden Boy card. I've attended both. They put them on the field kind of toward the corner. So it seats 22,000 for any normal event. I assume they can add a couple thousand more on the stadium floor. And the card is headlined by a fight that we all knew was coming, Crawford and Israil Madrimov at the 154-pound division. Coming right back for another fight, I like him staying busy, is Isaac Cruz. He's going to face Jose Valenzuela, Rayo Valenzuela of the United States. Also coming back in his cut must be healing nicely. Tszyu, and assuming he wins his fight this weekend, Vergil Ortiz Jr. at 154 pounds also. Also on the undercard, the return of heavyweight Andy Ruiz Jr. against big baby Jarrell Miller.
He don't deserve this shot. I'm sorry. Excuse me for interrupting.
There's only, even as big as Andy is, there's about a 60-pound difference. So we'll see what happens there. Also joining the card, David Morrell is getting a shot on this card, and he is going to face Hot Rod, this is one of those names you stumble over, Rad Kalajozic. He's known as Hot Rod, light heavyweight. And Andy Cruz, fellow Cuban now in the United States, will face Antonio Moran of Mexico. That is the main lineup, 6 fights, all of them terrific fights. Who knows, there may even be a handful more. They just tend to pack these cards. The date is August 3rd in Los Angeles. Now, interesting choice of dates. August 4th is the birthday of Turkey Al-Sheikh. So apparently this is his birthday present to himself. I don't know when tickets are going to be on sale, but it was made official. We saw some face-offs. Interesting to see Crawford and Madrimov facing off. They are almost, at this point, just going into camp, seem identical in size. They're the same height. Going to be a very, very interesting matchup. There's going to be a lot for us to talk about, as if we aren't already chattering like crazy over last weekend, and all the fights to come here in the next couple of weeks. We've got one more here scheduled in the summer. All I got to tell you, though, having covered 2 fights during the day, sitting on the floor of that stadium, oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, hydrate, bring your sunscreen. It is hellaciously hot in there at that time of year. But hey, the Saudis don't care. They're used to it.
Quick follow-up question. We've seen the number of fights that's been held in Saudi Arabia. Your thoughts on the fact that he's now bringing the show to the United States? Are we about to see him he's a major player now, right? Are we about to see him basically have the beginnings of his own little takeover of the sport?
Well, people have said that for months. It's not just this card. He is a boxing fan with unlimited money, the backing of a very, very wealthy government who knows that the days of fossil fuels are going to come to an end eventually, and they need to diversify their economy. They also need to make nice with the rest of the world because of the geopolitical issues involved with the Saudi government, human rights issues. You're seeing news conferences with the various Saudi officials, including people implicated in the murder of journalists. It certainly makes somebody like me extremely concerned about interacting with this. And I get it. Everyone is thrilled with these fight cards, and we've seen some terrific fights. A lot of money's being thrown around. That kind of unimaginable amount of money can make all this happen. The Saudi government does not need to make a profit on any of this. This is all a marketing investment at a massive scale, right alongside the Live Golf Tour, the involvement of the Saudi government staging high-end tennis tournaments, F1. This is, one more entry into making everyone so excited and so happy about these events. And, I don't deny these are great cards, terrific matchups. It's thrilling to see them. I do watch them. But what's happening is exactly what they want to happen, is everyone's forgetting all the other issues and all the other extremely serious baggage be glossed over by our excitement over this. We're being distracted by this boxing shiny object over here. And I don't mean to be Debbie Downer over it, but please, everyone, especially in the United States, be very clear-eyed about what this is. And is this spigot being left open, turned full on the way, all the way up to run forever? No, it will not. This money will not be running into infinity. Someday they're going to turn the tap off. What happens then? What happens then when expectations have been raised? This is not somebody in the boxing promotion business for the long haul. He is not the next Bob Arum. He is not the next Frank Warren. So enjoy the cards, temper your excitement, be realistic about what this means from a sporting perspective and a geopolitical perspective. And I'll get off my soapbox because this is supposed to be a fun boxing sportscast.
No, understandable. Your concerns are that you raise
Mhm.
are more than understandable. Uh, while that card is happening in August, Daniel, on July 7th in Tokyo, we're going to have a unification battle at 115 pounds as Kazuto Ioka, who's BA champion, fighting IBF champion Fernando Martinez. Now, Ioka, he was wanting a fight with Gallo Estrada, but Estrada's going to fight Jesse Bam Rodriguez also in July. Uh, if he's not going to get the fight with Estrada right now, Fernando Martinez, a heck of a substitute.
Yeah, it's a good way of having good consolation on it because we know Kazuto has been gunning for Gallo. Yeah, he's been gunning for Gallo for a good while. But obviously Bam Rodriguez got there first, but this is a really, really good substitute. You know you're gonna get home country advantage. And we know that Kazuto does actually have a bit of a I wouldn't say Napoleon complex, but a superiority complex when it comes to him and Inoue as far as star power. Because I have to remember for a good while, Kazuto was the top dog in Japan as far as popularity, as far as ticket sales when it came to boxing. Then Inoue came and blew the top off. So he's trying to get as much as he can because he knows that Inoue is gonna. Well, first of all, Inoue already talked his mess last week when he hit Sean Porter, letting him know that I don't really need to come to the U.S.
Don't
when I'm more
spoil it,
than
Daniel. We'll talk about that later.
okay. Yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there, folks. But it's a good substitute of a fight. And to jump on a little bit of the soapbox that Gail mentioned, as far as we know, it does not involve blood money. So that's the good thing of it, because I agree with Gail. Like we cannot forget that the money that's coming in with these boxing events has an ocean's amount of blood coming with it. And but now because of the blood will at least be in the spirit of Bushido. And we'll leave it there.
And again, that fight is going to happen July 7th in Tokyo, Japan. Boxing hardcore heads, boxing geeks like ourselves, a lot of us will be up early in the morning, East Coast, Central, Mountain, West Coast time, trying to find a feed
We're up
for that
late.
fight.
In my case,
And
you just might as well stay the
Daniel,
hell up.
yeah, and Daniel, he tried to spoil it, but we're going to mention one Naoya in a way. I meant to talk about this last week, but Sean Porter, former welterweight champion, right? Um, part of the Haney Garcia broadcast team raised a big stink about one Monster Inoue, excuse me, when on a podcast he he basically said that Inoue has a lot to prove still. In his mind, uh, um, Inoue has been eaten easy. That he needs to end, to paraphrase Porter, um, fight more in the United States in order to be considered the star, quote unquote, and he needs to fight more American fighters. Um, I'm gonna get on my soapbox, but I'm going to go to you, Gail, and you can follow up your reaction to what Porter had to say about Inoue. And to Daniel's point, Inoue, but he retorted on social media, basically saying, listen here, Sean. No disrespect, but I am the champion. I am the undisputed champion. I am the centerpiece. I draw big crowds. If folks want to see me, if they want to fight me, come to my home. I don't need to go anywhere else.
Sean expressed an opinion that's held by a hell of a lot of American boxing fans, and an attitude that we in this country, the U.S., is still the center of the boxing universe. Wake up, folks. That hasn't been true for some time. Boxing is still extremely healthy and popular and making money in Mexico, in the United Kingdom, in the Asia Pacific region, and in particular in Japan. There
Where
are,
has always been a centerpiece of
yeah,
the lightweight division. Always.
absolutely. In Mexico and in Japan, to name two, boxing is among the top 1, 2, 3 most popular sports. In Mexico, the only rival it's got is soccer. In Japan, there's only a handful of other sports that are anywhere near as popular as boxing. And I know that sometimes surprises people, but Americans should at least be marginally aware that boxing is a massively popular sport in the UK. Now, it's slightly behind both soccer and cricket, but trust me, boxing events sell well, sell out. There are champions. The UK has a robust rivalry just within its own member nations. Winning a regional or British or Commonwealth belt is a big deal. So there's a lot of excitement over that, and they don't even need to go beyond their boundaries for that. And then here we have Sean Porter mouthing off like most ugly Americans do, because we're just an arrogant country in general, saying, well, he can't be much of a star if he doesn't fight in America. Come on, Sean. He quickly got put in his place firmly by Inoue, firmly by the rest of his countrymen, firmly by many members of the boxing community that pointed out he is, if not the number one pound for pound fighter in the world, he is certainly tied up there at the top with Terence Crawford. Flip a coin. They both deserve to share the spotlight up there at the top. He fills arenas. He is going to fill the Tokyo Dome here in about a week and a half. The last time someone was able to do that, Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. He has no need and no reason to come to the United States. He makes an enormous amount of money. He is the A-side any way you slice it, and he gets to call the shots. Why does he need to come here? Now, he's fought in the United States 3 times. Sean, maybe you were too busy at the time when you were an active fighter to remember or to have paid attention. He fought in the bubble in Las Vegas. You could have just driven down the street to see him. I saw him make his American debut against Antonio Nieves at what was still StubHub Center in Carson.
One of the Superfly events on HBO, might I add.
Second Superfly card. And even then, I distinctly remember looking around at my colleagues on Media Row, and all of us kind of, you're doing that nod to each other like, okay, wow, okay, he looks like he's everything we were told he was. So I think in the end, now that it's all died down a bit, I think it was a productive exercise, honestly, overall, for Sean to raise these issues, which, was his honest opinion, and he firmly believed it. But he needed to hear the truth of the matter. And we need to stop putting ourselves in that arrogant central position where the sun revolves around us. No, that's not how it works. We have a place in the boxing world, but it isn't the place that we had 20, 30, 50 years ago, right? The heyday in the 60s and 70s, folks, let's think about it. That's 50 years ago. It's an international sport with international interest, and we are just one player. And I would argue that if it wasn't for some of the media organizations that are still here, we would not even be a major player. We have American champions, but the marketplace in the United States and the attention, has been drawn away to a lot of other sports.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
Well, like I mentioned, Kazuto Inoue really, really clapped back at Porter when it came to his comments, because we have to keep in mind, like Gail mentioned, when it comes to lower weight classes, Japan has always been one of the major hubs. Between Japan, Philippines, most of Indonesia, Thailand, and Latin America. But the big money fights are either close like Mexico or Japan. And we also have to keep in mind, Japan has been the major hub as far as money when it comes to combat sports. They've had experience with this. Let's remind folks of a little thing called Pride FC, Pride Fighting Championships. Was the main competitor to the UFC at a point that it was bigger than UFC. They had the best stock fighters. They had the most money. Granted, it was Yakuza money, but they had the most money. If you wanted, it was the place where MMA fighters, especially in the late 90s and early to mid 2000s, if you wanted to make big bucks, and if you didn't want to get tested for steroids, you went to Japan. You went to Pride. I know we have this notion of American exceptionalism where if you're going to make it, you have to make it here. But one thing that has been proven with the advent of the internet, especially having social media, it has allowed the globe, a lot of countries and a lot of markets to stand up on their own 2 feet. Japan being one of them. And we shouldn't be as American centric in some areas as when it comes to others, because let's face facts, when it comes to how big the sport is, boxing is huge in Japan. You're seeing it now, very, very huge. And you're seeing the type of fighters that are coming out of Japan, particularly in low weight classes, among the best of the best. And they support their fighters. We can't say that a lot of the times here in the U.S. Hell, look at the flack Devin Haney's taking because he got one loss in a fight. And this is, remember, the time where sports were sometimes having 2 to 3 losses was a good thing because you want to be a better fighter from it. But we have adopted the culture of you have to have an O on your record at all times. And the sport in the U.S. has suffered because of it. And because it suffered at points of it, we lost ground in some markets that we may have tried to make up. Like the ground that Michael Carbajal or Brian Valoria could have made at lower weight classes, even a little bit of Nito Donaire, even though he feels more of the Philippines. We lost a lot of that ground with the way that Americans, we have shown fluctuating support because of our fighters. That's not the case with every other country, particularly Mexico, particularly Japan. We have to be careful. We have to be careful of just thinking that this is the only way to make it here. Because what did we just talk about too? We talked about fighters going to Saudi Arabia of all places, if we're talking about money. And if we're talking about influence, if we're talking about getting your name in the big stage, we have to get out of that mindset when it comes to certain things. Yeah, there are some areas where we can say it. Boxing, I can safely say, probably is not one of them.
This was asinine, ignorant, nativist, all at the same time. Um, from Porter, narrow-minded, short-sighted, uh, uh, it just did not make no sense for a multitude of reasons. Why why does let me go back. You mentioned that in a way Gail made his debut Superfly 2, I believe it was in 2016. Um, that was an attempt to get a fight with Roman Gonzalez, who was the it name when it came to the smaller weight divisions, and who HBO put their full endorsement behind. And quiet as kept, Inoue's camp offered a fight with Roman Gonzalez. Chocolatito turned it down. Inoue signed the deal with Top Rank late 2019 in part to get himself exposure in the United States. So for Porter to suggest that he has to make a concerted effort to fight in the United States is dumb. That's what he did with the Top Rank deal, right? Fought twice here in the United States. One time during the pandemic, and he made his mark. He got a lot of attention. Why it He's gone on since then to become undisputed champion in not just one but two divisions, and did it in basically a 12, 13-month span. Clean out two divisions. And in terms of this notion that he has to fight more and more American fighters, number one, it's ignorant of the lower weight division landscape. Sean Porter, name me five really good American fighters from 122 down. You don't see a plethora of good, talented American fighters in those weight ranges. You just don't, right? And the chance that Inoue got to fight America's best in Stephen Fulton, what happened in that fight, Gail? I'll answer it for you. Inoue wiped the floor with Fulton. Easy work. Uh, to Daniel's point, when it comes to the lower weight divisions, Japan rules. Inoue is making word on the street anywhere upwards of $10 million per fight. His next fight against Neri is going to be at the Tokyo Dome. Anticipated crowd anywhere from 45 to $50,000. When you are drawing that kind of a crowd, when you are making that kind of money, why does he have to leave the comforts of home to go the extra step to fight in America? It doesn't make any sense. This is his comments are of someone who does not understand the dynamics of the lower weight division. He just doesn't understand the dynamics of the lower weight division and what Inoue has done up to this point in his career. Senseless, clueless. I expect better from Sean Porter. I was disappointed in his comments thoroughly. Carry on, Gail, before I get even more upset.
Well, I don't think we need to carry on. I think we've beat this to death. I think we've made our point. And I do think it was a productive discussion in the end, because this is what a lot of American fans think, and they think that all of boxing and all of boxing's fortunes and health live or die on what's going on in the United States. Is there a decent number of pay-per-view buys for Haney Garcia? How's Tank Davis selling tickets? Yeah,
let me add on.
how
Excuse
did
me.
Ted
I said
Crawford
I
do
said I said native is also dosed, is also got a tinge of xenophobia as well. If we're really going to be honest here.
well, and I think we've made our case. It's just simply everybody, and there's a silver lining to this. Let me get to that. Let me get away from this negative discussion. And the silver lining is this: there are people very worried about the health of boxing and the dropping pay-per-view numbers and the fact that more fights are on pay-per-view in the United States, and that we're not creating the big stars that break into general consciousness in the United States. The good news is boxing is still hugely popular in generating, you know, sporting celebrities with, enormous fame beyond the sport in a lot of other places in the world. Let's embrace that. Why do we only have to be rooting for American fighters or worrying about what's going on here? When boxing is doing well in the rest of the world, we should celebrate that, embrace that, and enjoy it. There is a big segment of us. You sort of get a kick out of the fact that, in my case, on the West Coast of the United States, I got to wake my ass up at 3 a.m. And, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon that I'm willing to get up in the middle of the night to see a once in a generation talent live from Japan. And we couldn't have done that 10 or 15 years ago. Streaming and digital technology now allows us to see these fights live in real time from all over the world. And that is a blessing.
I mean, I just shake. I could just continue to shake my head. Any more thoughts on this, Daniel? Daniel, have you had your piece and said what you need to say?
I agree with Gail. We kind of beat this horse to death.
Know better, do better, act better, Sean. You are in the media capacity. You are an analyst. People look to you when it comes to and value your opinions. Um, have better opinions than this. But to Gail's earlier point, unfortunately, not just American fan, well, not just American fans, but specifically American fans who profess to call themselves, who dare call themselves, who have the nerve to call themselves hardcore boxing fans, hardcore boxing heads, has the same thought view of Inoue. So unfortunately, is despite the fact that we basically spent the last 10 minutes railing against Porter. There are other folks in the boxing community who will agree with him. Um, sadly, all Inoue can do is just continue to do what he does, and That's been enough now. That will continue to be more than enough. He doesn't have to answer the calls of a Porter or anyone else. He's doing just fine. Let's move on to preview some fights here. And Golden Boy card, I believe this is Jose Ramirez, still a bit on the comeback trail. Daniel, following his loss to Josh Taylor a few years ago, fighting Rances Barthelemy. What do we make of Ramirez? This fight is going to happen in Fresno, California, right? Ramirez's backyard. Ramirez is the favorite here against the older Barthelemy. What do we make of Ramirez at this point of his career?
Well, it's interesting. First, remember this is his debut under Golden Boy, and they're giving him a little bit of a layup because Ramirez has been a fighter. Yeah, he's very pop. Obviously, he's going to get very popular. He's going to get a good crowd in Fresno, but unfortunately, a lot of the weaknesses in his game, and unfortunately, it is one part for the course for a lot of the fighters that come out that from Robert Garcia gyms is they can bang, but they can't defend very well. And that has cost them a lot of times in high caliber fights. This is, to me, is more like a rebuilding period. Now, Barthelemy, you don't really have to worry about much when it comes to knockout power per se. But he's also not really an aesthetically pleasing fight. His style is not aesthetically pleasing in many ways. So it's interesting to see that this is the opponent that they picked for Ramirez, who really does best when he's able to come forward and he has another guy that is willing to come forward too, and they can have fights in the phone booth. Barthelemy really isn't that type of guy, but because he's a pretty safe bet as far as knockout power, it's something to get Ramirez in front of his fans. He'll get cheered, but it's also a good gauge to see how much his style has to change a little bit, because interestingly enough, if he can make 140, I remember, folks, I said at the beginning, if he can actually make 140, because I don't really believe that he actually tried, but that could be a decent fight with him and Ryan Garcia, especially now that Ryan Garcia can make money. It's something to look into, but I don't really expect much out of it. I don't expect Ramirez to like KO Barthelemy crazily, but I don't expect the fight to be really aesthetically pleasing. But then again, we kind of said the same thing last week, so you never know. Chaos may reign again.
On the undercard, Gail, we mentioned Vergil Ortiz. Basically, the fight is lined up with Tszyu, but first he has to get by Tomas Dulorme. I know that Ortiz has had his health issues over the years, but he's fighting a Dulorme who's a bit long in the tooth and the naturally smaller guy. Am I wrong in thinking that Ortiz will have little to no problems against Dulorme, and we need to start playing? I know it's wrong to presume, but we should start thinking somewhat towards a fight between Ortiz and Tszyu, given this fight against Dulorme.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a roll of the dice. Every fight has its risks, obviously, but Ortiz Jr. needs a fight, needs some time in the ring before he moves forward to a fight with Tszyu. This is it. He is presumably not going to have a problem. He is not facing somebody with a lot of power who is moving up in weight to face him. So in theory, shouldn't be an issue. And he really does need the time in the ring. So whatever small risk there is of him getting injured, his health having a problem, better we find out now, frankly. But his fight with Tszyu does have to pass go, and this is go right here. The win against Dulorme. And Dulorme is, he's fallen into gatekeeper, no name status. So, yeah. Is it a great matchup? It's, it's the co-main for one thing. It's not even the main event. And Ramirez has a very similar fight. Golden Boy does not want to risk its investment in either Ramirez or Ortiz Jr. Until this unexpected windfall, thanks to Ryan Garcia. They are having to watch their budget, and they are needing to protect the names they've got on the roster. They've got a tiny bit more wiggle room here. We'll talk a lot more, I'm sure, about the matchup with Tszyu and the future for Ortiz Jr. He's had a really rough road. And I think that there's some questions about his long-term future in boxing. So they want him to take a big fight, and he wants to take a big fight now.
Quick response to compliance, restoration, and roofing's comments. Ortiz versus Tszyu, no Ortiz, no Tszyu versus Fedora rematch. Quick thoughts on that, please.
Well, once they
I
threw
think it's a
Spence,
large part. I'll just say this: I think it's in large part due to the fact that Fedora is going to be on the shelf for a while due to that broken nose that he suffered in the fight with Tszyu. So that's why you're not going to see it immediately. So
that's part of it, yeah. Because if you're Tim Tszyu, you really want to have a good rebuilding fight, at least somebody tough that you can actually gauge in, and depending on how Vergil does in this fight, that'll definitely give him a chance into it. But let's also not forget, there's also the little specter of possibly Tszyu being asked to step aside for a payday fight between Fedora and Errol Spence. So that you always have to keep in mind. We don't know how that would be because of Fedora's broken nose, but that could also play a factor. But it's also good. It's also a good thing if Vergil wins this out. It says something about Tim Tszyu. He likes to be active. It doesn't matter if now we know it doesn't matter if he wins or loses. He wants to be active. He wants to be in the ring, and Vergil may be the type of guy that should, unless something weird happens with Dulorme, Vergil may be the type of guy that can get a real good bounce back fight for Tszyu, even though there might be a possibility that he may have a rougher time than expected.
one last bit of breaking news here. I forgot to it's not really breaking news, but I forgot to put it in the docket. Super lightweight contender, junior welterweight contender, hard-hitting Gary Antoine Russell leaving PBC to sign with Matchroom. Last week we talked about the news of Boots Ennis signing with Matchroom. Now we see Russell signing with Matchroom. What does it say about Matchroom, and what does it say more importantly about PBC that they're losing fighters to Matchroom?
This was going to happen. It's one of the reasons why you're seeing Al Heyman get chummy with the Saudis right now, because they need the money. They need the money. We don't know. We haven't seen yet the full extent of what this Amazon Prime deal is supposed to be for PBC, because we don't know if it's going to be regular cards or if it's all just going to be pay-per-view. And when you have that large of a roster of fighters, you do need to get them fights. You do need them to go in. And if some of them don't see the fights coming in, they're going to leave. Now, Boots was never really 100% PBC, but he was more aligned with them. Him leaving hurt. Now you're having guys like Aaron Antoine Russell, guys that you probably would have thought would have stuck around with PBC for the long haul, leave too. It does speak volumes to how the shifts are changing, how some allegiances that you thought would last may not be. And like I said, it explains a lot of moves. It explains the August 3rd card for a lot of promotions, but particularly with PBC. And said they need money to get their fighters in, or they need to loan out fighters on different cards when it comes to promotions, because otherwise they're not going to have as many fighters as they can. And if you don't have a lot of fighters and that would provide good opponents for the top guys that you do have, it doesn't bode well for the pay-per-view market. And that may, like I said, that may be what the Amazon Prime deal is hinging on.
And I think we're going to end things on that note. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. If you're checking us out on YouTube, Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It'll help the overall algorithm to subscribe. You get notifications on all future episodes. I appreciate the comments and the questions of compliance, restoration, and roofing. Going to go around the panel, begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com. For those who want to talk all things boxing, let the folks know where they can find you.
It's as easy as finding me on nyfights.com, nyfights.com, and also on your social media platforms. I'm going to recommend a story written by one of my colleagues, Beowulf Jones. Yeah, that's his real name. He attended the McGee Media Workout, and his post about his experience there up at Wildcard meeting Munguia and the Golden Boy team is now online. And it is very different than your typical dry toast media workout review. So I recommend it to you highly. And after we are done here, get yourself over and watch the main event on Pro Box. And we've already had it upset at the co-main. And Pro Box is doing good little midweek cards. I highly recommend it.
And I'll go to you, Daniel from For Boxing News and the Inscriber. Congratulations to your Miami Heat, who won Game 2 against the Boston Celtics the night first round of the NBA playoffs. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, folks, you can find me. It's going to be the same handle. It doesn't matter if it's Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Rockers99, RAWQZ99. Definitely catch me on there. And yeah, we had a good bounce back win today, and we kind of needed it when against the Celtics. Now we got to take it home. And you got to remember, folks, the next 2 weeks are going to be very live, because for what we're going to actually be looking forward to really, really good Cinco de Mayo weekend. We have to see, because judging by how Munguia looked today with the public workout, things might be interesting.
Yeah, boxing is really starting to heat back up. You mentioned the May 4th cards. May 6th, of course, Inoue is going to fight Neri. That's part of a 4 world title fight card over in Tokyo. And then, of course, throughout May and really into June and July, a lot of good bouts is going to happen for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with yours truly. You can do so on Twitter, because I refuse to call it X. Brother JR at Brother JR76 for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and all things fragrance / colognes. You can do so on IG, TikTok, and Lemon8, Brother JR SC. And also on Threads, Brother JR SC as well. On the next episode, we will have a recap of the aforementioned card in Fresno, California. Jose Ramirez versus Rances Barthelemy, Vergil Ortiz versus Thomas Dulorme, and a lot of previews, right? The big one, of course, in Las Vegas, the return of Canelo Alvarez. He's going to fight Jaime Munguia. Brandon Figueroa is going to fight Jesse Magdaleno on that card. Mario Barrios, Emianis Stanios are both fighting on that card. And also on May 4th in Japan, Emmanuel Rodriguez defending the IBF bantamweight title. We may also talk about, likely to talk about Naoya Inoue. Of course, he's fighting Luis Neri, the WBC mandatory challenger at 122 pounds. They're going to fight. That fight has been talked about for years. It's finally going to happen. That's going to happen actually on ESPN. So you don't even have to go to ESPN Plus. That will be on ESPN early in the morning. Also on that card, Naoya's younger brother, Takuma, is going to defend the WBA bantamweight belt against Sho Yoshida. So all Japanese battle there. Also on that card, Jason Maloney is going to defend the WBO 118-pound title against a Japanese fighter by the name of Sakai. In another all-Japanese battle for the WBA flyweight belt, as Sigo Akui going to fight Taku Kawara. So a lot of world title fights on that card. Again, that's going to happen May 6th in Tokyo. So it's going to be a lot of previews on the next episode. So again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the YouTube chat, the live YouTube chat, excuse me. Appreciate your comments. For Gail of NY Fights, for Daniel of 4 Boxing News and the Inscriber, this has been episode 443 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I am your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.